Hello, it's Pete here again from Sizzix, and we're looking at the first Tim Holtz collection of 2025, specifically one die set. We're going to be looking at the Vault Industrial, and we're going to try and recreate this cool little card here. So let's get going. So here it is, Vault Industrial. So many bits and pieces in this set, so much going on. We've got the cogs, we've got the numbers, we've got the light with the filament, obviously. We've got the pipe work, we've got these wonderful dials and what have you. You can see how you can put them together. And this is just a serving suggestion. You can do whatever you want with this. It really is one of those that keeps on giving. It's so many bits and pieces you can combine. You can use them individually. It's I think it's one of Tim's maker's favorite dies, and therefore I would imagine one of Tim's. So we're going to create a nice little card. We're going to bring in some of these cogs. We are going to bring in this lovely little light bulb and a few bits besides. So let's start off and take that out of the way. We're going to die cut some shapes. So let's tip these out. You can see exactly what we are getting. Of course, with Tim's dies, they always come in the plastic wallet, and you always have the artwork which you can pop in there, so you never kind of lose the inspiration. But what I'm going to be using today, I'm going to be taking this one, and you can see now the inner ring and the outer ring cut. These other bits, they emboss. So that tells you where to put those circles, which represent obviously, either they could be screw heads, they could be rivets, they could be all those things. That is the light bulb. Then here we've got some really cool rivets and bolt heads. Then what else? Let's see. Oh, I'll take that cog. I'll take this ring, which you can see there, it's embossed, so that fits in there. Oh, my filament. Can't have the bulb without the filament, and these little elements also, they go with that bulb. Then I think we'll take this, and finally this one, and we're good to go. So the rest shall live to fight another day. Now I'm going to be using black cardstock, and I'll show you why in a second, because really I'm going to cut these once, but actually I'm going to want to cut them twice, because with Thinlits, if you cut them twice and stick them one on top of the other, it gives you a really strong, solid shape to work with, depending, of course, on the weight of the card that you are using. You'll notice I'm not cutting the bulb at the moment, but that will come along in a little while. So my filament, I'm actually going to be cutting from this orange card. So let's bring in our old friend, the Big Shot switch. And this, of course, is Tim's Big Shot switch. You see his signature there. Now, there's the on button. So it's in place. It's an electronic machine as we know. It has this wonderful storage. It kind of, I always think of it as very modern looking, but very retro at the same time. Almost like something out in the 1930s made of Bakelite. Love it, love it, love it. So let's bring that down. And then here are my plates on which I shall place my dies. Thus. Then I'll take my filament, put it next to it. And that's the beauty of a switch. Of course, if you have lots of die cutting to do in one go, then you have all this room. If you're just cutting smaller dies or just a single die, and you have a Big Shot, you can use the smaller platform and plates in your switch machine. I'm not sure how many of you know about that, but that makes it a whole lot easier with smaller die cuts. And as you can see, the machine does it all for you. If I needed to switch direction, there's another button, but I don't. One pass through the machine, and these are going to cut perfectly. So I shall take that, pop it to one side, and let's see what we've got here now. Oh, lovely. They've popped out by themselves. So there we are. There's a little tag. Save these circles as well. You know, they are going to come in handy at some point. There. And then let's grab the rest of these. Now there's my little You see all those little nuts and bolts and what have you? We can pop those shapes out as well. Here we are, there's my ring, there's my cog, and there's the middle bit. So that's everything that I need. We're all ready to get going with the next stage, which I've actually done it for you. We've sort of gone ahead of ourselves, but I will need this one a bit later on, so I'll just pop that out for now. And obviously, you know, die picks are really useful for getting all those little bits out. I'm just going to use the end of my tweezers for now. So I'm going to put that to one side, because what I've done, as I said, I want to cut these twice, but I've already cut them. So I'll bring those in and show you what I mean and why I cut them twice. Now, this, for example, it may be difficult to see. Actually, it may be difficult to see, but what I've done, I've put those little rivet heads on there and that ring around the center. But because I've gone for a double layer, it's much thicker, it's much more rigid. I've done the same with these. And there is another thing that you may notice at this point that I've done, and that is I've used some grit paste. Now this is called Grit Paste Snowfall. And what it does, it's great if you want to give a snowy look to some of your makes. That's how it comes out. But if you just use it sparingly, it adds texture. So if you're going for a rusty look, it's absolutely ideal. It really is top notch. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's just take those out for a second. And I'm going to bring in my media mat. This is the Sizzix media mat. So it's absolutely ideal. Whatever you're using, whether it's acrylics, whether it's distress inks, distress oxides, it is absolutely perfect. And I'm going to be using acrylics today because these look great as they are. That's fine. But I want to give it a little bit more. I want to make them look slightly rusty and careworn. And the best way to do that is with acrylics. Now, at this point, because I've used the grit paste, you could paint this black, you know, before going over it with the next bit, but I don't think I really need to today. So I'm just going to apply a little acrylic. And I've got some browns here. That one is a very deep brown. This one is a slightly reddish brown. And this one is lighter still. So when I use these, I sort of go from the darkest to the lightest, and I'm going to use a sea sponge. Now, you could even just use a piece of kitchen paper, because we are not looking for. And I think when people look at some of the makes, particularly the ones that Tim's makers do, and they see the techniques, and they think, "Wow, that's incredible! I wonder how they did that." The truth is most of these techniques are really rather simple and quite random. But what you need to be able to do is to be able to brave enough to just go at it like this. Because that's what pays dividends. The more that you throw caution to the wind, the better the results, the more natural it starts to look. So I'm coming in with the second color. I'm using it sparingly, and again, I don't want to labor the point really, but I think I say this for pretty much everything I do. You can always add more, but you can never take it away. Unless, of course, you paint black over it and start again, which is, of course, you can do. So that should take away the fear of making a mistake. So now coming in with that lighter red, it's not really going to show up until I put these back onto black card, which I shall do in a minute. Now, let's take that to one side. Remember the black card that these were cut from? Let's have a look at this. You can see that texture. It really makes a difference. And because I put that grit paste on it, it's incredible. It looks like rust. It really does. And now, nobody can tell me that you couldn't do that first time. Anybody, whether you're a beginner, this might be the first film you've watched with die cutting, paper crafting, what have you. if that is the case, then you're welcome. But look how easy that is. Look how achievable that is for anybody. Anybody. You don't need any special skills to do this. You really don't. Now, I'm using this charcoal. This is a lovely gilding wax, or Lustre wax as we call it. That's the Sizzix brand, Lustre wax. And this is a charcoal which gives you that lovely, I keep thinking of it as graphite actually, but it is charcoal and it gives you that sort of, that slightly underlying metallic look. Silver is a bit unforgiving. It's great, but it's not as subtle, so you do need to add a little more care and attention. But there you go. That's good to go. Now, you're probably thinking, hang on, Pete, didn't you take the light bulb? Well, I did. And I cut it, and I hope you can see this, from a piece of acetate. Now, that acetate is quite thick, so you might want to use, it doesn't have to be thick, but it is in this case. You might want to use a precision base plate to get the best, cleanest cut. But this cut with that thinlet first time. So check out, see what acetate you got in your stash, and I'm sure it's going to work. Now, another great thing about media mats is, if you've watched anything I've done before, you know that I don't like to take the glue directly to my die cuts. I like to take the die cuts to the glue, and that's what I'm going to do today. So I'll take that filament and pop it on here like so. So that is going to go underneath the light bulb. Thus, I'll just move that so you can see it in the light. So there we are. The other part of the light bulb is the base here. So we're gonna start to put all of this together, because there is one thing that I want to show you with this light bulb, which is what brings it to life and what gives it dimension and makes it look like real glass. But before I do, let's bring in these couple of bits of cardstock. You can see this has been inked up and stamped using distress inks, and this is going to form the foundation for the little card that I'm going to make. And I'll take this is my Tim Holtz tiny attacher, which is an ever-present by my side, and that's it. That's going to be the basis. That's going to be the foundation that everything else is going to sit on. And the reason that there's that light patch there is that's where I want my bulb to go over. So next up, let me take, I've got a piece of card. Normally I do this in a spray booth, which has a fan on it. You should do the same, but needs must today. And I'm going to spray that with some permanent spray adhesive, because what I want to happen is I'm going to put this over the top. That wasn't supposed to happen. There we are. This is going to adhere to the rear of my bulb, like so. Okay. At least that was the plan. But I obviously didn't spray enough. There you go. I'm very mindful of our expert videographer, Steve. I don't want him coughing and choking and spluttering from the adhesive glue. You should always do it, folks, in a well-ventilated area. There you go. There's my safety advice. Now, what about these cogs? Let's have a look. Now, I want to put these together in a little composition. So let's tip them back onto the black. I only put them onto the black so that you could see exactly the difference that we made earlier, because, you know, the difference is not apparent otherwise. So I'll take my hot glue gun. I'm going to pop this. That is now the base of my bulb. So it's really starting to come together. Can you see that? And obviously, you know, I'm moving it about. Get that stringy glue off there. I'm moving it about so you can see the sheen of that acetate there. It is really, really effective. Now, what I want to do is take these guys, and I'm going to use my hot glue gun, because we've got that little bit of extra dimension. If you want to get the stringy bits off, it's good to do that as well. So there we are. Now that ain't going nowhere, which again is one of the wonderful things about our beloved hot glue gun. The other one, I'm going to put it somewhere there. That's a little bit of hot glue there, a little bit of hot glue there, and then pop that over the top. And because we're using a double layer, this is very solid. This is very, very rigid now. It's really cool. Last but not least, let's take this one. And I can feel it in my hands actually. There will be a close-up photograph of this somewhere, so you can see that wonderful texture. So we'll pop that there. Now you may, one of the great things about a hot glue gun is it is instant and it holds so tight, but there are these little extra stringy bits which come off it, which is no problem. You just need to pull them away with the tweezers or your fingertips. But there we are. That is now going to sit on top of there. But to do that, I'm going to bring in some 3D foam pads, and I'm going to put them under the biggest element, like so. 3 will do. 4 is better, because as I've gone down the years, I've really got the knack. I've really got the knack of peeling the back off these things. Now, before I put it down, I want to make sure that I've got it in the right place so that the bulb sits where I want it. And there it is. Wow, that's starting to come together now. And then finally, on the back of my bulb, I'm going to add a bit more hot glue. And again, to get rid of the stringy bits, I'm going to move that glue gun around so that is going to sit in exactly the right place. And because we're using thicker card, that is going to float above the background. There's a couple more things that I want to do. The first is to attach it to my base card. And again, we'll get these 3D foam pads. I usually like to have one in each corner and one in the center. But you know what, it's subjective. I've been to workshops and I've seen people use dozens, hundreds of these things. It's completely unnecessary, but whatever makes you feel secure is fine by me. And you can see I've stamped, that's one of Tim's Stampers Anonymous stamps. We're going to pop this like so. And then let's take a little bit more glue. There is one more thing we need to do to the bulb as well, but I'm going to get some glue on there and I'm going to attach my sentiments. So these were pre-stamped. The first one says, "Choose to shine." No prizes for guessing why I chose that particular sentiment. And the second, and this is again another of Tim's sets from the wonderful people at Stampers Anonymous, we're going to have "Light the Way." And you know what, with this one, I'm going to get the old glue gun out. So there we are, because "Light the Way" is going to sit over the top of those cogs. Just like that. Now, the bulb itself. For this, our old friend, and I don't need an excuse to use Glossy Accents. I really don't. Let's just put the glue gun out of the way. Glossy Accents dries to a clear gloss finish. I'm reading off the label. Clear dimensional medium, fine tip for precise application. So if you want things to take on a wonderful gloss, then simply apply this. And it doesn't, at first, when it comes out, it's sort of, it doesn't sit entirely flat. And there you go. I need to make an adjustment to the nozzle because you know what? I probably didn't put the top on properly. But you squeeze this out and it sits on here. And can you believe it? Can you believe it? I've got this far in the video and I can't get the Glossy Accents out of the bowl. This is not a fault with Glossy Accents, people. This is a fault with Pete because he doesn't put the tops back securely. It's going to come. It's going to come. I can feel it. I can feel it. There we are. It's coming out there. So you see there, it comes out milky and you can use the nozzle to move it about. You can put it on quite thick. That's okay, but you can move it towards the edges all the way. At first, it doesn't look that great. It looks too milky. It's hard to figure out. It's amazing the way that this self-levels. Okay, so I'm not squeezing any more on at this point. I'm merely spreading those glossy accents just to the edges, just to the tips. And it sits and dries. Now, it takes to dry, when I'm putting it on this thick, I would guess probably 3-4 hours, but we can probably see there that it's already taking on that lovely, so it's got a curve to the edges. But what I'll do, I'll take this away and I'll show you, here's one that I made earlier. So you can see there, that lovely, and I'm sure we'll get a great photograph of this, but this is the Volt Industrial. Here are a couple more examples, that one using the dial, the numbers. This one using the pipework. It is such a versatile set. You've got all of these different things going on. Mix and match, have fun, use all those really cool techniques. So there we have it. It's one of those things, it's such a lovely little make this. There's a lot of different techniques going on. As I say, if you are new to this kind of thing, you can see that some of the most interesting techniques are in fact the simplest. So a little bit of acrylic, a little bit of distress ink, and the genius of Mr. Tim Holtz for coming up with these wonderful shapes. So this is Volt Industrial. It's one of 5 different sets in this collection. So we've done an overview video, go back and check it out. Tim has done an overview video, go back and check that out, because it will be in more depth, and I'm sure it'll be far more interesting than mine anyway. But I love this little card, as do a lot of people. So thank you for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll see you again soon.